and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Giving all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Rakakwadash. And that's a quote from Revelation 17th chapter. Anyway, this is RT News concerning, and this has been going on for about a week and maybe 2 weeks or so. It says here, U.S. sides with UK, France out, is NATO unraveling. And this is a deal that the French made with the Australians to sell them nuclear submarines. It was a very lucrative deal. And the U.S. jumped in and behind France's back, which France is a NATO of the U.S., and made a deal with Australia concerning these submarines. So France is pissed off at this backdoor deal. And this is nothing but, prophecy coming to pass. So I'm going to let you listen to this, watch it and listen to it, and then I'm going to quote a couple of scriptures. I'm not going to necessarily go and read the scriptures verbatim, but I'm going to quote the scriptures, and let's see where the Spirit takes me. Because we know the scriptures I'm going to go through is speak on is Daniel chapter 2, and the feet of it. That's that giant image from the head of gold down to the feet of it, which is part iron and part miry clay. We're in that time. We're in that time. This is the time when the feet are breaking up. Now, if you go back, 2 years ago, Great Britain, the UK, broke off from the EU, and the EU and the NATO nations are intermingled with each other. You have, like I said before, you have some EU nations that are not necessarily a part of NATO, and you have some NATO nations that are not necessarily a part of the EU. I believe Turkey is a part of NATO, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me. I can check it out later, but I'm almost positive. Turkey is part of NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but not a part of the EU. The U.S. and Canada are NATO nations, but are not a part of the EU. France is a member of the EU and NATO. So ultimately, what's going to come to pass is Revelation chapter 17. I'm sorry. You can start from the 12th verse on down. And I quoted part of it. I believe that was the 14th verse. That they will eat Babylon's flesh and burn her with fire. And her flesh represents her aid. They will get as much money out of America. It also speaks about that in Obadiah, which is 1 chapter long, where it speaks about they will eat thy bread and lay a wound under thee. I'm merely paraphrasing. So in reality, the member NATO nations and EU nations really don't give a damn about the U.S. And they're basically going to use U.S. for monetary aid. And then ultimately they're going to shoot missiles on the U.S., excuse me. You know, we think about Russia and China, but your major enemies are going to be your own allies. And it is going to happen. It's mentioned all throughout the prophetic parts of the scripture. And that's why we get so into prophecies. Prophecies, prophecies, prophecies. The major prophecies are coming to pass. The breakup of the EU nations, the charagma. So anybody that's thinking, oh, we could be here another 20 years, you don't understand the prophecies. Anyway, let me let you listen, and I may say a few words, and then I'll close.
All the major powers of the world have a duty, in my view, to carefully manage their relationships. And we are not seeking a new Cold War or a world divided into rigid blocks. The United States is ready to work with any nation.
Which is bullshit, because the U.S. did a backdoor deal with Australia when France had that deal locked and sealed with Australia. So there's definitely a hatred for the U.S., for Babylon.
This comes amid the aftermath of a decision last week by the United States to enter a trilateral security pact with Australia and the United Kingdom. The AUKUS Pact has been set up, and this agreement was seen as a slap in the face to France, a longtime NATO ally of the United States. It resulted in submarine contracts and the sale of submarines by France to Australia being canceled. It was quite a lucrative deal, and as a result, the United States will be supplying submarines to Australia rather than France. The French were quite outraged by it, as were other voices within the European Union.
One of our member states...
Not just France, as the individual just said. He said other NATO nations are pissed off about this. So this is the buildup of the hatred for Babylon the Great. And ultimately, we're in the nuclear age now, man. We're dealing with, this deal was on nuclear subs. So for the ones of you that don't understand prophecy, you're going to get caught out there. You're going to be a part of you're going to be on the wrong side of prophecy.
Has been treated in a way that is not acceptable. Friends and allies, partners talk to each other. So this did clearly not happen, and I think we need to talk.
There is a growing feeling in Europe, and I say this with regret, that something is broken in our transatlantic relations. It is probably time to pause and reset our EU-US relationship.
What we're seeing there has made a lot of things more difficult, and
Now the individual said there's something broken in our transatlantic gathering, whatever the hell he said. Anyway, then he mentioned EU, which are two different entities, but a part of the same beast. Remember, the beast is NATO nations and EU nations.
afraid things will remain more difficult for a while. We understand very well the anger of our French friends. What was decided there, the way this decision came about, is irritating. It is sobering, and not only for France.
Here's another member of the Allied forces saying pretty much they're pissed off. The French are not just pissed off, but these other NATO/EU nations are pissed off at what the U.S. did with this deal. And I believe Australia, I have to look that up as well, whether I believe they're an EU nation. I don't know if they're a NATO nation. I have to look that up.
Now, what's interesting is that After Joe Biden spoke on the official schedule of the UN General Assembly, we were supposed to be hearing from French President Macron, who was going to give a pre-recorded statement. However, that pre-recorded address from the French leader has been canceled. France has not given an official reason for this decision, but many are looking on and saying that this is related to the new tension between the United States and France related to the AUKUS deal. Now, China has also denounced the AUKUS deal, saying that it is an escalation, leading to a kind of new Cold War.
Wow. So China is in the mix. And they're saying this deal, which is called, this deal that was made, was called the AUKUS deal. So if you put in AUKUS deal in Google, it'll give you a lot of information. So even France is pissed off about this this move that Babylon the Great did, the U.S. did.
The US, UK and Australia's nuclear submarine collaboration has seriously undermined regional peace and stability. And
oh my goodness, has clearly undermined regional peace. So this is turning into a Cold War. And all Cold Wars turn into hot wars. So here you got China chiming in. This is not a good move for what the U.S. or Babylon, the move that this guy Biden made. He's making the whole world in a NATO, EU, China, Russia sense, an enemy. The whole world is beginning to hate America based upon this one deal.
Intensified the arms race and undermined international nuclear non-proliferation efforts.
So quite a bit of skepticism from international observers about Joe Biden's speech. This was his first speech to the UN General Assembly. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
These 60...
Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.